gentlemen, I'm Alexis with PPM TV, and if you've hung out with us before, and I imagine you have, you might recognize me from the Priority One Fitness Show, which airs way early in the morning. We're on at 8:30. Are you up that early? Well, now you know where to find me if you're up for a little workout. We're not here for that today. Today, we are here for something I would say is much more interesting than exercise. We have with us today Bob Dale. Bob is from the Center for Wildlife over by Mount Agamenticus. They're in Cape Neddick, Maine. Now, the Center for Wildlife focuses on rescue and rehabilitation of, you guessed it, wildlife. If you are local and you've driven the Mount Agamenticus Road, I'm certain you have gone right by their driveway, and I bet you didn't even know they were there. Now, they have been there, well, nearby in that spot, since 1986. So, Bob, that's a long time.
Yeah, we have, not a lot of people realize that we've been an organization for that long. Obviously in very different iterations and a lot of different stages of growth since our inception in 1986. So we were started by a local veterinarian in the York area as well as a state senator that realized there was very much a need for wildlife rehabilitation here in our region in the Seacoast. So it literally started just out of the backyard all those years ago. Grew and grew over the years. We moved into a donated ranch home in the mid-90s until moving into our beautiful new multi-million-dollar facility just the past, we've only been in for just about 2 years now. So it hasn't been long since we've really reached this next really large stage of growth that we're in right now.
And when he says stage of growth, ladies and gentlemen, he is not kidding. My first introduction, as if you know the Center for Wildlife, your introduction may have been as well, is through need. I, of course, was looking to help one of our animal friends who had been hurt and sweep in to do the right thing. I found them, and they were in a much smaller facility, which is right next door.
Right.
But this new facility, oh my goodness, I can't even explain it. You can't wrap your mind around it. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And just quickly, this is all donor funded.
Yeah, we're incredibly lucky to have such a supportive community here in our region. We were able to do a very large, very extensive fundraising process to get ourselves into the new property that we're in. But that being said, it's very much not over. There's obviously always more money needed to be raised to really establish ourselves in a space and a property that helps really facilitate the scope of work that we do at the center, which definitely can be surprising to some people when they learn about the variety of species we work with, the number of animals that we take in on a yearly basis. So we are very lucky to have this community. We're really only looking to expand how many people in our community utilize us as a resource, but then are obviously generous enough to help support the work that we do.
What are some of the things that you can do in the new facility that you weren't able to do before?
So just give you a kind of rough idea of the change of space, the indoor square footage of our new facility, just the lobby is the same indoor square footage of our entire facility that we were operating out of prior.
Wow.
To give you a little idea of the scope of change of our new facility. So in the medical clinic side of operations, so again, the two sort of pillars of our organization, there's the medical clinic side where we treat injured and orphaned wildlife, again with the hopes of rehabilitating, releasing to the wild, and then our education side of the organization. So on the medical clinic side, we have a really beautiful state-of-the-art new medical wing of the building that has an on-site x-ray, has isolation rooms for different species, has rooms that are specifically set up for the caring of songbirds, for some of those baby birds in the springtime, baby mammals. We have a room just set up for caring for aquatic species with a variety of different custom tubs for caring for some of the aquatic species that we work with. So from the medical clinic side, it's a complete game changer, this new facility. It really has enabled them to only elevate the scope of their work and the quality of their care. Our quality of care was always at a pretty high level, but with this new facility, it really makes their ability just endless for the quality of care they can provide for animals. On our education side, we're really, really lucky to be able to expand our space to host groups on site, whether that be through our new nature center where our reptile and amphibian friends live, an auditorium, an outdoor stone amphitheater for conducting educational programming. As well as one of the really big upgrades to our new facility is on-site intern and apprentice housing, where we are able to house interns and apprentices that come through on a yearly basis and spend some time with us working either on our medical clinic or on our education side as well.
Enclosures for people and animals.
That's right.
That's a big step forward.
Yeah.
How many animals do you think you've helped over time?
So we have, again, been an organization since 1986, so we're talking about tens of thousands of animals that have been cared for in those years. So over 50,000 animals have come through the doors since the start of our organization in 1986.
Amazing.
So every year we do see some fluctuations throughout the years on the amount of animals that come through the doors. Historically, we have only grown in terms of our patient intake. We have had some years where we've treated close to 2,500 animals over the course of a calendar year.
Now, I know that you treat a wide variety of animals, and in a moment we're going to learn why there are parameters in place. They can't help every animal. Bob will tell us a little bit about that. One of the things I was surprised to learn when I was on the website, you have helped, there are over 190 native species of birds?
So,
is that right?
So we work with 190 total species of animals, which may have been the number that you were looking at. Yeah, so that 190 different species of animals that we work with covers our native bird species. We work with any any bird species that you would find in the wild around here, including some of our seabirds as well. And then our small mammals that we work with, as well as reptiles and amphibians.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, quickly, something pertinent. I know that I follow you on Facebook, and you have been helping. You speaking of the not enclosures, but your ability to help water birds.
Yeah.
And you have one friend in particular who has just come in, or you're helping. I'm drawing a blank at the name of the bird.
Yeah. We have a very unique species in right now, which is called a razorbill, which is an incredible pelagic seabird species. Here in New England, we get a lot of seabirds that come down to us in the wintertime that spend the rest of the year pretty far north of us, well up into the Atlantic, up into the Arctic Circle for some of them. These razorbills being some of those included, as well as some of our more common patients that we get in the wintertime, the little dovekies, tiny little beautiful pelagic seabird species that we are able to care for now, specifically like we just mentioned in our aquatic species recovery room, where we have some very specially fitted tubs where these seabirds are enabled to spend some time in the water, both in and out of the water, where they're able to keep up with their waterproofing of their feathers. Some of our seabirds are diving predators as well, so it enables them to have some space to dive under the water, and we'll live feed them with some fish. So it's enriching for them as well.
And you're able, more often than not, I would hope, able to release them and then they migrate back north.
That is the mission, yeah. So a lot of these birds, like we just mentioned, are only here for parts of the year, so it is kind of incumbent upon us and pretty important for us to be a bit timely with our care sometimes, so that we can hopefully get them back out to the wild in a timely fashion that allows them to continue with their natural migration.
So if you've driven the 95 highway, you have seen the Welcome to Maine Vacation Land sign. So it's not just vacation land for us.
Yeah,
they come down here, they visit, and off they go.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of mileage, you can't help everyone everywhere. I understand you help within a 100-mile radius of York.
Yeah, so animals come to us from about a 100-mile radius, which is pretty extensive. We are very lucky to have a supportive community that helps us in the transportation of these animals within that 100-mile service area. So we are not traveling off-site on transporting animals. We do partner with, and we encourage people to become more knowledgeable about and get in contact with local animal control officers. We have have a new part of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife in the state of Maine, a whole task force team that is out and about trying to help mitigate with and can help transfer animals that come in contact with humans negatively. So there are resources out there. If you're not comfortable doing the transport yourself, there are some resources out there that we are able to turn people towards. But yeah, within a 100-mile service area, we see quite an abundance of different species that come from that range.
Now, you cannot, and I think it's important, ladies and gentlemen, that we understand the Center for Wildlife is not equipped. They are not able to go out and go to you. They can't go and pick up an animal. It's critical that we understand that we either need to recruit transportation help, as Bob was referring to, which you can certainly speak with the Center for Wildlife for those resources, or we need to be prepared to bring an animal to them ourselves. So just quickly, what are some of the things we should keep in our car?
Yeah, so I would definitely right off the bat here encourage everyone to spend some time on our website. We have quite a few pages right on our website that is a ton of resource knowledge on ways in the do's and don'ts of interacting with an animal, ideally when only interacting when an animal is in need of care. But there are some really simple things that you can do, some really simple things that you can even just carry in the car. Some of those really simple things that we always encourage: a collapsible cardboard box, really easy to store somewhere in the car, underneath the seats, in the trunk, a blanket or a towel, and then some gloves for your safety as well are just three really easy things that you can keep in the car, which can help with a lot of situations.
Now, we met in another program, we met an owl and a falcon, ladies and gentlemen, so make sure you look on the schedule for those things. But Bob taught us something about and of course I learned this on the website, but I had to ask him to expound upon it. When we're bringing that towel, the towel's not for every bird. Tell us about the friend who we shouldn't use the towel to help.
Yeah, so there are some animals that obviously wouldn't do great in a towel situation. So we've got some bird species. Our woodpeckers are one that we actually usually tell people to not fully wrap in the towel. You can sometimes use them for the transportation and getting them kind of comfortably in a secure spot. But our woodpeckers, actually, believe it or not, can get their incredibly long tongues stuck in towels or fleeces, which can cause some issues as well. And then one of our more common rescue animals that come to us are porcupine as well. So they are actually even a little more important that we educate people that you do not want to wrap a porcupine fully in a towel or a blanket, just because of those barbed quills that will usually get stuck, and then it becomes a pretty sticky situation for all parties involved if you're trying to wrap especially a porcupine in a towel or a blanket. That
makes perfect sense, and I think we would be inclined to think we could just maybe throw a blanket or a towel over any friend and scoop them up. Not the wisest idea. Yeah. And of course, you have a porcupine ambassador that, if you haven't been to the Center for Wildlife, if you can and you're in our area, please go pay them a visit. Not only because of the support that you provide by doing so, but because you get to meet so many wonderful friends. Now, they're not touchable friends. These are not pets. And that's an important piece that we need to understand, that during educational programming, and whether it's a tour or someone like Bob or one of his team off-site, and you might have the opportunity to interact there, we don't get to touch.
That's right. Yeah, we definitely try and differentiate ourselves and distance ourselves a little bit from some other animal encounters that you may have experienced out there. It's really important to educate people and to remind people and to drive the message home that these are wild animals that we are caring for. While they may look very comfortable with, some of them are very comfortable with people, while they seem very at ease with their caretakers, it can be a little deceiving for people to interpret that as, oh, these, I can go grab an owl and it's just gonna come sit in my car with me, or it's just gonna come live with me at home. It's really important to remember that these are wild animals. Our mission is to rehabilitate and release them to the wild. Some of these animals that can't be released, a little silver lining to the unfortunate situation is that they can live with us in sanctuary at the center and we can use them to educate about and advocate for their species. So all of our ambassadors, we try and help them in their education of the public on the do's and the don'ts, ways in which you can help, and just to make really deep connections with their species as well. So it's quite a blessing.
Not all of your ambassadors are comfortable traveling. That's an important piece as well, ladies and gents.
Yeah. So some of them, we obviously, the first and foremost mission of ours, the first and foremost thing that's always on our mind is the safety, well-being, and comfort of our animals. So a few of our ambassadors in care just generally aren't kind of mentally suited, can get a little stressed out by the prospect of traveling, being around people. So we do have a handful of ambassadors that they purely just live with us in sanctuary, play a few other roles. Some of them will act as foster parents for us. That we just respect their space, give them the comfort of just living with us in sanctuary and not actually traveling and doing some of the programming.
And I think it's important for people to understand, myself included, I wasn't sure, I didn't know until I visited your website, why you are restricted, for lack of a better phrase, to helping only certain animals. It's not for lack of wanting to help every animal.
That's
Can you
right.
help us understand what the parameters are and why they're in place?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously being animal lovers, wildlife lovers, and advocates for wildlife as we are, we would love to care for any and all animals that come through the doors. But because of some restrictions on our space, while we do have a beautiful, beautiful new facility, we are not unlimited in our space. So we do our best to really focus our scope of work so that we can provide the highest quality of care for the species that we work with. And again, this is 190 different species of animal.
Amazing.
Including birds, small mammals, reptiles, and amphibians. But then there are also some legality restrictions around what animals we can take as well. There are some species that are not able to cross state lines, which is another thing for your viewers to keep in mind.
Yes.
We are right across the border in Maine, so we do have some restrictions on what animals are allowed to travel across state lines. But then also being a facility that is open to the public and has visitors on site on a near daily basis, we are restricted in some further restrictions, especially with rabies vector species. It would not be ideal if potentially a rabid animal is on site while we've got a field trip of third graders
Oh my
as
goodness.
well. So again, we work with 190 different species. When we throw that number out there, it kind of helps people take a step back and be like, okay, yeah, that's a crazy number. And we always try and steer people towards a resource where you can. Obviously, anyone that calls us or reaches out to us, we want to empower them the best of our abilities so that they can help that animal. So we can also point people towards other resources that may be able to care for that species that we can't.
Which was my next question, something you can find on the website, are resources that are additional types of rescuers. I noticed that you can actually, and correct me if I'm wrong, it looks like you can click on your state within a certain, of course, Maine,
That's
New
right.
Hampshire, Massachusetts, some of the primary New England states, and those resources become immediately available to you. The Center for Wildlife website is such an invaluable resource in and of itself, let alone what goes on to bring the website to fruition. But you could do a quick visit of the website and learn so much. And again, we can't just bring a bear. Yeah.
So I mean, it's a really great resource. The website, ton of educational resources on there. So I highly encourage people just to go on there. A lot of people find us when they are in the midst of that wildlife emergency situation.
I'm one of them.
So being an emergency resource, it's great to have some of that fundamental knowledge or just know what your resources are prior to an emergency situation coming about. So definitely encourage people to check out the website, spend some time searching around on there so that they are better suited and have some of the tools and some of that base knowledge for when they are in an emergency situation with wildlife.
So one of the interesting things that this leads to is a collection of data, however you'd like to say it. I was looking, and I know, of course, that you partner with UNH, and we referred to briefly in our chat to loon conservation. Can you expound upon that?
Yeah, so one of the things that we really pride ourselves on through our medical clinic side of operations is the partnerships that we've built over the years in doing conservation research throughout the region here. So we are lucky enough to have the staffing in place, and we obviously have thousands of animals that we've cared for over the years, tens of thousands since the start of our organization. So our baseline data spanning these 190 species we work with is tremendous. So we obviously are right on the front line of when animals are coming in conflict with humans, or potentially carrying diseases, viruses. Being right on that front line of caring for these animals allows us to then partner with other organizations to use the data collection that we do to inform larger conservation conversations. So one of the ones that we're really, really active in, and one of the ones we're really proud of, is our work doing loon conservation throughout New England, working with some organizations like the Loon Preservation Society, and quite a few others throughout our region that are doing very active on-the-ground loon conservation work. We, through our medical clinic, we both help facilitate some workshops at the center, as well as provide any of the baseline data and knowledge that we see in some of the anecdotal information coming through. One of the big issues with our loons in New England is lead poisoning. So we do some necropsy workshops at the center, bringing in a large number of conservation groups, bringing in students as well from a variety of different schools to learn about telling some of those signs and reading some of those signs of lead poisoning in our loons throughout New England.
What leads to lead poisoning in a loon? I have thoughts, but what are the
Your
primary
thoughts
causes?
are probably correct. Fishing gear is
Yes, I
really
was
the
thinking.
number one issue for loons. So loons are a diving species. They go underwater and they are collecting a variety of different prey sources: fish, little crustaceans, some aquatic worms, all sorts of stuff under the water that they're collecting. Obviously, when we are using lures and weights when fishing, we are trying to attract animals, trying to attract fish, obviously, which replicates some of their natural food sources. So it is pretty common for some of these loons to ingest some of this lead fishing gear. So it's really important just to first and foremost do an audit of your fishing gear, making sure that you're not using any lead items while fishing. But then there's also some great trade-back programs that most New England states do. They partner with a lot of local fishing equipment companies, bait and tackle shops, gear shops, where you can actually go in and trade in your old lead fishing gear. So definitely encourage people to do some research there, and definitely take a moment if you are a fisherman or woman just to spend some time looking at your own equipment.
That seems like a simple thing that we could all pay a little bit more attention to.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're here with Bob Dale from the Center for Wildlife in Cape Neddick, Maine. We're going to take just a quick breather. We'll let Bob stretch his legs. He can go ahead and get a glass of water. We'll be right back.
The center's main mission is to rehabilitate any animal that comes through the door, so that's what we really focus on. We have a vet that, donates a lot of time helping us with surgeries and things we can't do here, but we also do a lot of education. The education, has certainly expanded over the years. 10 years ago we were probably doing about 20 education programs a year, and it was kind of just word of mouth, and last year we did 75 programs. And just exposing kids to all of that, I think, because kids are really the ones that, of course, most of them love animals and they want to do what's right, and a lot of times they end up educating the parents because they've learned the correct thing to do, and they might have a situation. We had a boy actually last year who saw our program in New York schools, and him and his dad stopped to move a turtle, and his dad wanted to put it back in the water. And Kevin said, "No, Dad, Karen from Center for Wildlife said it has to go in the direction it's walking." And the dad said, "Oh, I never knew that." So, our main goal is to be able to get these animals back out into their natural habitats and return them back out there. Really our greatest need, especially in the summer, just because there's such a high volume of animals coming through here, is financial support. I mean, some people are great at donating items from the wish list, which is on our website, and those are always helpful because otherwise we're at the store, purchasing the items we need. But really financial contributions so that we can, pay our now $400 a month electric bill from running all these lights and fans and heating pads and everything it takes to, keep these guys warm and so forth. Our expenses are very, very high in the summertime, and we have a lot more staff hours that are put in. So money, bottom line is really what keeps the place going. Turtles are great, and we love to do education with them. We just hope that we're sending the right message to kids that they shouldn't be pets. And sometimes we wonder if, because we're standing up there with, these cute turtles and everything, if we're encouraging kids to want to have them as pets, or if they really listen and don't get them. It's that we don't know, but we try really hard to tell them that they're not an animal that should be our pet, and they certainly should be in the wild. And every animal counts, and if they didn't come here, where would they go? They would just sit out there, or people would keep them, and they wouldn't have a chance. So we feel it's really important to give them all that second chance at life.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Alexis with PPM TV, and if you're just joining us, we are meeting with Bob Dale. Bob is the Marketing and Outreach Coordinator for the Center for Wildlife in Cape Neddick, Maine. And I'd like to point out, if you have driven the road to Mount Agamenticus, I bet you've gone right by them and probably not even known. Now, the Center for Wildlife focuses on conservation. They focus on rescue and rehabilitation, and in an ideal situation, release. Of course, that's not always possible, which is why Bob and his team of friends help to make it possible for our friends out in the wild to have a safe and secure environment. So many of their friends are able to teach we humans about the care and safety of animals, the care and safety of wildlife. Now, please keep in mind, because it is a rescue organization, so many of the friends, if you've met, Bob may have even introduced us to in another program, they do have limitations. They are not pets. And while they may appear beautiful and perfect on the outside, they do live with medical conditions which inhibit their ability to live on their own. This is where the Center for Wildlife comes in. So Bob, when we were speaking last, we were speaking about loons. We've covered some things about birds. I know you help a lot of 190 species of animals, maybe even a few more. Now, we've looked a little bit, we spoke a little bit about loon conservation, which of course brings to mind something that is heavily in the news, avian influenza.
Yes.
Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so definitely a really large topic, obviously on the news, and something that we have had to deal with pretty heavily on our side, as have all rehabilitators throughout New England. So this new strain of avian influenza that was going around this year was a highly contagious strain, a new strain that unfortunately proved highly fatal for a lot of our bird species, and actually then crossed into mammals was being tested in mammals as well. So it's definitely an issue that definitely put some restrictions and a little stress on our operations this year, but then was very much in the news. So we definitely have done some education over the course of the past year around avian influenza. One of the points of education that we have tried to help get out there is just being conscious of it being a potential risk, and being a potential risk to any people that have any domestic birds at home as well. So one of the main issues that has arisen with avian influenza is the fact that it is highly pathogenic and is able to be passed along pretty easily. So there's the risk of people coming in contact in the wild, passing it on to domestic animals, domestic flocks of chickens, anything like that. So it's out there. It's a reality that we are still very much dealing with and will probably be around. So definitely encourage people to do a little bit of research. We have some information right on our website as well to help pass along a little bit of education around avian influenza as well.
And there is also a phone number for information or to report cases of avian influenza, which is on the website, of course. Yep. Such useful information. Yeah. Do a little digging. It's worth taking 5 or 10 minutes to scoot around on that website. You're going to learn so much more than you think. Now, thinking about things that we can learn, let's talk about the fun stuff, Bob. We met some friends, and you travel around. You go to a lot of different places, sharing with people like me, like you, all of these interesting facts and safety tips. You do things on site. You go to schools, you go to libraries. Tell us what you have coming up.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of great educational opportunities at the center. It's a pretty large part of our mission, the education and advocacy. We very much try and work outside of our little bubble so that we can get the word out there, because obviously we are the ones dealing with the repercussions of most commonly negative human-wildlife interactions. So a big part of our mission is getting out, educating people on what they can do to help wildlife in our region. That being said, we are really lucky to now being able to host really large groups on site for field trips, tours, private experiences at the center. So we're really trying to get people through the doors to come visit us at our new facility. But we do also travel off-site with the animals to schools and libraries. We offer quite a variety of different topics, ranging from specifically around birds of prey to some of our larger presentations around, talking more about all of our native animal species throughout New England. But we also do some regular programming on site that is on a monthly calendar that usually kind of rotates throughout the seasons. We do some really fun during the winter coming into spring, ending in the spring. We do owl prowls on site where you get to learn about some of our ambassador owls, meet some of the ambassador owls, and then prowl around our property for owls. We do some programming just for kids as well. We have a really great program, Where the Wild Kids Are, which is a little toddler time on the first and third Wednesdays of the month, where you can bring your toddler in and have a little experience meeting some of those ambassadors, again, making some of those connections. So we definitely try and cater to and offer educational opportunities to a wide variety of range groups, everywhere down from little kids up to some grandparents coming in to pay us a visit as well.
Now, I've had the great opportunity of going on site and getting a personal tour. My husband and I, Bob, as a great birthday present, my husband took me to the Center for Wildlife, and Bob walked us all around. Tell us quickly, who are some of the friends we might meet?
Yeah, so we currently have a team of 28 resident ambassador animals at Center for Wildlife. So that spans a variety of different bird of prey species, some scavenger bird species as well, a handful of mammals, and then in our nature center we have all of our reptile and amphibian friends that live in there as well. So it's a really fun variety of animals that you can encounter. Usually everyone leaves after visiting the center with one ambassador animal that they made a very deep connection with and quickly becomes their spirit animal. So we always love when people are able to make those connections with the variety of species that we have.
And can we drop in can we just drop in? Do we need to call ahead?
We do allow for drop-ins, for self-guided visits.
Great.
During our winter hours, we are Thursday through Sunday for visits with some different hours throughout the day. So I encourage people just to visit our website to check exactly what those visitation hours are. And we will be expanding visitation hours coming into spring through the fall. So definitely encourage people just to keep an eye on the website. We'll have all the information about all of the different ways that you can visit us at the center.
Speaking of visiting the center, ladies and gentlemen, that's something that myself and the crew that you don't see making this program happen are going to be doing very soon. So stay tuned and keep in mind, we have had Bob here to look for our creature features, hop on the website, and before we go, it is extremely important to me, to everyone involved with the Center for Wildlife, that I let you know the Center for Wildlife is a private nonprofit. They do not receive any grant funding. Again, no grant funding available to the Center for Wildlife. 1% to 3% of charitable giving throughout the nation is given to environmental and wildlife causes. Only 1% to 3% of donated dollars in our country make it to wildlife. We can do a little more. We can absolutely help. So plug the Center for Wildlife phone number into your phone, because you never know when you may need it, even just to ask a couple of questions. They are always there to help. Again, please make sure you hop on their website, look for some guidance, make a little donation if you can, follow them on Facebook. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Bob. We're looking to spread the word. Get a t-shirt. You can spread the word a little bit too. Thank you again for making it possible for us to bring Bob in. I'm Alexis with PPM TV. You know where our website is. We'll look forward to seeing you again soon.